Greetings, everyone. This is Virtuous Roots, where we reclaim virtue to bring it to our home and yours. And I'm Thomas McCuddy.
Good evening, and my name is Karnu van Heerden.
And so we are continuing our series where I am live recording in Pretoria. We are overcoming obstacles in trying to record here in South Africa. Obviously, not in studio. Might not sound like we normally do. But we're excited. I'm back in Pretoria. I've been teaching with Apologetics SA for the last couple of weeks, and we had Suzette Ellis on our show not that long ago, and I went down to Potch, and there I hung out with Simon Brace, who is now, my understanding, the international director for Ratio Christi, and also there at Northwest University. So today I'm here with Karnu, who's a chapter director with Ratio Christi. So we're joining back with Ratio Christi, learning a little bit about what's going on here in Pretoria with Ratio Christi. So to catch everybody up, Karnu, just give us a real short, what is Ratio Christi? Remind us what this is. And for somebody who's never ever heard of Ratio Christi before.
Thank you. Yes, so Ratio Christi, I could say, is a international apologetics, Christian apologetics ministry. And sort of summarizing what we do, I would like to use the image of a coin. So on the one side of the coin, you could say that we want to help Christians specifically to understand what they believe and why. And on the other side of the coin, we want to create a space for unbelievers and people who are not Christians to ask difficult and critical questions. Because if we believe and we are convinced that Christianity is the truth, we would not be scared to take questions and objections. Because there's a lot of difficult stuff that the church is facing out there. And as Ratio Christi, we want to come beside the church as an organization and help serve the church with these rising objections and questions and difficulties that are rising up in the culture.
Excellent. And so I know some people may ask, what does Ratio Christi mean?
Yes. So Ratio Christi, it's Latin for reason for Christ. So, and also obviously biblically based, we get what we do from passages like 1 Peter 3 verse 15. We have 2 Corinthians 10 as well, Acts 26, where it's clear that there is an example. In Peter, it's a command to always be ready to give a reason when someone asks us, or to give a defense, apologia, apologetics, when people ask us for the reason for the hope that is in us, but with gentleness and respect, of course.
Excellent. And yes, and hanging out in South Africa, again, several of the ministries we partner with are apologetic ministries, but it's not just about academics. It's about discipleship. It's about growth. One of the things we do here with this particular group, with the Pretoria Ratio Christi group, we've been actually leading in virtue. We've been meeting once a month, even when we're in the States, because that's, again, our emphasis is we want to train the mind, but we also want to be the kinds of people who, as 1 Peter says, we want to give this defense with gentleness and respect. So that's what goes back to the virtue. So speaking with that, how long have you been a chapter director, and maybe explain also what does that mean, being a chapter director with Ratio Christi, and what is it a little bit that you do?
Okay. Yeah, I must say, just overall in Ratio Christi, I've been involved for quite some time, since 2014, and I served as a student president at the Potchefstroom chapter from 2016 up until 2018, around there. In the transitional period, we had 2019 and 2020. We were forced to do a lot of online stuff, so it was sort of vague what we were actually doing.
Everybody remembers 2020. Like, all you got to do is, yeah. And so things changed in 2020, but now we're back.
Yes, but I could say I assisted at Potchefstroom for 2021 and 2022. And afterwards, I was called to the Pretoria chapter as we needed more leadership. So what it entails is basically a chapter, the students, everyone that's attending there is basically I have oversight of it, making sure that everything not just runs well, but making connections with local ministries and local churches, identifying the issues that are at that particular chapter so that we can have a razor focus on the issues that the students and basically anyone else is facing. So yeah, it's basically, you could say, a overseeing position as a chapter director. And my situation is unique. I am particularly, what I do is I am not just a chapter director for one chapter, but for two chapters. And so I'm not just chapter director for Pretoria, but also for Centurion, where we do events with academia.
Excellent. And so if a student comes in, and again, this is as we're thinking, and our whole emphasis, how do we help parents come alongside their kids? How do we help them raise their kids? And one thing we like to emphasize in Families of Virtue is that you don't stop being the parent once the child turns 18 and runs off to college. Some people talk about that, and I've heard people joke and like, when they're 18, I'm kicking them out, and they're on their own. And I'm like, no, that's not the best way. So students going to university, and they're there by themselves. So Ratio Christi is the kind of place. The way I've always seen it is students. This gives them a place to come. It gives them a place to fellowship. Gives them a chance to ask questions. Also, students who struggle with their faith, maybe they're entering into the university, and for the first time are encountering all these different ideas that the university brings together. We like to think the best of the minds, but sometimes the worst of ideas.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, definitely.
So from your side, what does it look like being part of Ratio Christi? Because this is something we haven't talked about. And this is, if a parent is like, well, should I recommend this to my new college student? What does it look like from the student side to be part of Ratio Christi?
Yes. So specifically from the student side, I can definitely say this. This was my own experience going to university. My background is in theology, but going to university, I was definitely not prepared for what faced me at university. And despite, studying theology and stuff, and I'm thankful for my degree, but there was just a lot of stuff that was not present always in our training as well to help us deal with the rapidly changing campus culture. I mean, going there and encountering different religions that you've never had any contact with, going there speaking with groups that are strange, you come across atheism, agnosticism, all the isms basically, and it's extremely overwhelming. And I must say, if it wasn't for Ratio Christi way back when, I would not know where I would be. It definitely was a help to strengthen my faith, but also helping me to better articulate it. Because, for example, I was always bad with speaking with people. I would disagree with them, but I wouldn't know what to say. It's like, I would just stuck, and I would just avoid any, discussion or debate or whatever. But Ratio Christi gave me the tools not just to understand for myself, but to actually just be better speaking to people, asking questions. And that's sort of my own experience. I've seen that just repeated every single time. Many times we have students coming in, they were not prepared, and they just get completely bulldozed. And many of them, they come and, we catch them there. Many of them, they come and we just catch them right before, all things start to fall apart. And some of them, they come there and their faith is already shipwrecked. Mm-hmm. And so it is a daunting task, because I don't think, again, for any parents that are listening, like, it's real spiritual warfare. It's difficult out there. If you do not prepare your children adequately, it's going to be a tough time. And we can't just put a band-aid on the end. We gotta start early, you could say.
I think that's where a lot of parents, they think, this happened even when I was a youth pastor. They're like, well, my kid goes to church, they do a couple of church events, they'll be fine. That's all they need. And I think that emphasis on spiritual warfare is something that's overlooked. Like, you don't think about that. You think, well, they're going to go to college and then they're going to experience some spiritual warfare, as if the two are separate. And I think we're living in a time now where the going to college is the spiritual warfare. And a lot of parents are not aware like that you're finding yourself in an environment that is immediately hostile, and that in many ways there's aspects of the university where many teachers are geared towards trying to actually shipwreck the faith. And for example, in my country, in University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, there's a famous atheist, Bart Ehrman, and he teaches New Testament. So you can actually go to the secular school, take New Testament, and I don't know if he still does this or not, but Ehrman would say when you walk into his class, he said, if you're a Christian walking in, you won't be when you walk out. So I think sometimes parents are unaware of how direct this can be. It doesn't mean that every single class is filled with an atheistic professor that's out to get the Christians.
Yeah.
But there's a lot out there, and it's also coming from the student side that you find yourself amongst students that can be particularly hostile. And that's something that I think, especially for students who have never been in that environment, and like you said, don't know how to articulate themselves, and they get frustrated. There's a sense that Ratio Christi provides that place that you get some discipleship.
Yes.
That you can actually grow together. And so what are some of the things, for example, that you've done with students either this year or in the past? What are some specific, like, okay, so we get together, we have a meeting. What are some of the things that you guys have done and that someone could expect in going to a Ratio Christi meeting?
Yes. Yeah, I would say, trying to surmise the many years that we've sort of been doing this, we've had various approaches. We want to firstly be contextual. We want to meet people where they are at, because like when people think apologetics and it's your first experience, you think it's like high bar academics, intellectual. Like, look, we do go deep, but the thing is, it's not just that. We want to go deep because it's important. Apologetics and evangelism are connected. Jesus says in John 5:34, I say these things that you might be saved. He connects his testimony with the reasons that he gives for the Jews to believe his testimony. And so that's just the example we are trying to follow. And so by doing this, again, being contextual, we teach our students, when you speak to people, it's not always just an argument. Because some people say, it just teaches you apologetics is just debate and you just smash people. No, that's not at all. You're not obeying the do it in Christ-like character of 1 Peter 3 verse 15. We need a holistic approach to this. So sometimes when we approach it, some students, they definitely have intellectual issues, and then we work through those issues and those questions, whether it be scientific, theological, scriptural, archaeological. Any field is open to inquiry, and we want to address it seriously and with excellence as Christians. But on the other side, it's also many times we've seen Christians or even unbelievers. I remember many a time that we had unbelievers attending some of our chapter meetings, and they would just stick around. We have our discussions and back and forth, but they would like to stick around, especially afterwards when we would fellowship and welcome everyone. And that's why we should not underestimate the hospitality and Christ-like community, because when asking them, they said one of the things, they say, we disagree with you guys, but we really like hanging out with you all. They would say, I feel open, or I've never met Christians that, they would say, I've never met Christians that are open and willing to take my difficult questions. But I remember the one atheist told me, he always thought, Christians were a bunch of dumb fundamentalists. And after that first session, he's like, okay, I think I made a mistake. Because we have a rich Christian heritage, which we can pull from in that sense. So yes, and also discipling and character formation. I mean, for example, one of the things we like to do is teach our students logic. Now, you might think logic, but logic's logic. It's, we just gotta do it. It's just thinking. It's like exercise. You gotta go to the gym, but you can't just pick up weights. You need to train your body. The same thing, you got to train your mind. And I'm telling you now, it might not sound very spiritual, but it's probably one of the most spiritual things you can do as a Christian, because that's the way you love God, with your mind. It orders your thinking, and it helps you in your Bible reading, your evangelism. It helps you in your speaking, in your listening. It really helps form the whole of your not just mind, but your character, to be a better Christian witness in our culture. So, stuff like that.
I think that's one of the places that parents many times overlook, is they think, well, I have a really smart kid. They made really good grades. They did honors and all these things. And well, they're really smart. They don't need logic. Or they're already logical because they have good grades. And they don't understand the distinction that the way our school systems, and I believe I speak for both America and South Africa, many times the school systems are set up to provide you information, and then you return that information on the form of a test, and you return that information, yes. We say it a little bit more with an unglorious manner in the States, is you basically just kind of vomit up the answers, and the teacher's like, oh, I love it, and you get your good grade. So the concept of logic, where we teach and we emphasize virtue, that is intellectual virtue. It's not about capacity for data.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people miss that. They think, we're not just trying to cram in more data. We're trying to change how the brain operates.
Yes.
So if I can use the computer analogy, like most people, if they understand computers, they understand enough. There's a certain size hard drive, and there's processing power. And the school operates with filling the hard drive, putting the data on there. And in many ways, not just Ratio Christi, but just the whole apologetic enterprise in Christianity is about growing in logic, which is processing power, being able to think clearly, being able to work accurately, rather than, the brain giving your error messages, of the brain regularly.
Yeah.
And that's something that is applicable to everything from Bible study, how to study the Bible. I was just teaching this morning, as I was finishing off a course on the creeds, that as we learn logic, I kept bringing it up, and my students, they were kind of laughing about how much I was mentioning logic, and I said, I know what you're thinking. How does this help me love Jesus? How does logic help me love Jesus? And so I took them to 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul gives actually a dilemma with a fancy word, Latin, reductio ad absurdum. He basically starts with the position. He's like, all right, well, let's take the resurrection didn't happen. And he reduces it all the way down to its absurd conclusion. There are multiple forms that he uses, and it's all traditional logic. And that's because logic hasn't changed. It's the process of clear thinking.
Yes.
So one of the greatest gifts we can give to our kids is the ability to think clearly, not just the information and the data and calculus and science and all those things. And I think that's why with what Ratio Christi does, because it's not just you guys. I know the group down in Potch is focused on logic. I know I've heard other chapters. That's kind of the baseline. That's the start. So if you can think about your faith correctly, and you can also listen to what other people say and evaluate it and hear it, that's one of the ways that any student can benefit, but particularly those who are being told, Christianity is foolish. You're not using, check your brain at the door when you come to church. Yeah. we don't encourage that at all. No, you bring your brain and you use your brain because we're made in the image of God. We're made with those minds to do that. So, what are some other things maybe you can think of as far as well? Let's talk in the future, as we're looking so your school year is halfway over. So it's funny because in America, our school year is just getting started. Yeah. So at the time we're doing this, everybody's like, oh, it's only the third week of school. And you guys are like, no, we're worried about it. Final exams are looming. Yeah. They're there on the horizon. So what are some things that you're looking towards either for the rest of the year or maybe next year, the 2026? Particularly, I'm thinking for the high school senior who's in matric. You guys call it matric, right?
Yes.
That's okay. Yeah, we don't say it in the States. So I'm learning the terminology. Yeah. So somebody who's in matric who might be going to university, what could they expect coming up? What are some of the things, some of the events, some of the things that you do, particularly here in Pretoria? Somebody coming this way, what would be something that they could watch for, or that you're planning on doing?
Yes. So typically we have our regular meetings in the week addressing different topics, but we also have special events, amongst others, the logic class, but also we have what we call the Worldview Weekends. So it's part of a larger catalog of courses we're building on various different topics. But like we would have a Worldview Weekend, 2 days, 2 to 3 days, just intense worldview training on what worldviews are, how many are there, a deep dive into each one, and not just to learn about them, but learn how the inner structure works, learn the flaws and how you as a Christian can effectively engage with them. Because you will, in South Africa, is very unique because we have influences from the West and the East, as well as, well, the continent of Africa itself. So there's a mixing pot of every worldview you can think of. It probably is somewhere in South Africa. And so having that is very, very useful to start helping people to understand, to engage what many would testify to as just confusion and we don't know what the truth is. We also have other special events like our annual Ratio Christi conference. We have once a year, one in Pretoria and one in the Cape. It's a 2-day conference. We get international speakers from all over the world and even nationally here in South Africa to speak on a myriad of different issues.
The Lord willing, I'm going to be at the conference next year.
Yes,
That's
yes,
the goal.
yeah. I have a witness now. This is on recording. Yes.
So yeah, and those kinds of things, it's so helpful because you've got your special events, you've got your big things, but that weekly regular gathering, and that's that time where it might be an hour and a half time of teaching, but that time before, that time after, where it's the tea and rusks.
Yes.
I don't hit the R's like you guys do, but and I don't come just for the rusks, but we don't have those in the States, so it's a lovely time to sit around and that's part of that fellowship, that discipleship. So this is in many ways the encouragement to parents that just are not aware that these things exist, that they're there for the students. But I also want to encourage parents because these the Worldview Weekends and the national conference, they're open, so people could register.
Anyone can come.
Okay.
Besides, it's not just students. Anyone. If you're working, non-working, if you have a family, if you're single, if you're married, anyone is welcome. Yeah.
So the question then, how does somebody find out information about these upcoming events? How do they find out more about that? Where would they go to get this information?
Yes. So what you can just do, you can just type in Ratio Christi South Africa. You'll find our website. You can browse there, for example, our team, what chapter is closest to where you live, because we have chapters all around the country. There's articles, resources, but there's also like an announcement page on these events happening. And you can also, again, there's a contact tab for the local chapter directors. My details are there as well if people wish to contact me and know more about what's happening. We also have a Facebook page where many of the events are posted regularly. Again, just type in Ratio Christi South Africa and you will find it all. The Instagram, the Facebook page. Yeah, we're trying to really be more active. We've had wonderful people helping us spreading the news also with social media platforms. But that's basically where you can go have a look.
I think the one thing that a lot of my students back in the States appreciate is if they go onto YouTube and look up the Ratio Christi South Africa, you can find a lot of the conferences, a lot of the breakouts, a lot of the speakers who've been here, and it's almost just a huge library. So it's something that you can go to tonight and go look at and at least see what's out there, and it's a lot. So they will talk about subjects that you can't even pronounce. And they will talk about things that you are going to say, that's what I've always wondered about. And that's in some ways why Ratio Christi exists. It's broad in that it's not trying to do neurosurgery where they're going to like hone in with the laser. But there's an element, as the students are coming in and they're with you for a while, you try to disciple them and send them off. And in many ways, from what I've heard from some students, because of Ratio Christi, it's in many ways changed their life.
Oh yeah.
It's not just the college and what was special, what was meaningful. This group of people that can love and support and just kind of walk with them during that time. And parents, I encourage you, take a look, see what's out there. And if you're thinking, well, my child's in matric, my last child, and I'm going, you're about to have the empty nest. Do it for your grandchildren. Do it because I think it's a fair assessment. I don't have the research data, but I would say that the world is getting worse. That it's not getting better. So I would encourage you to take a look, get trained. Karnu, thank you for this time. Appreciate it. You can find our podcast, Virtuous Roots, on all major streaming platforms. You can find more about Families of Virtue at www.familiesofvirtue.com, and we will see you next time.